I always thought I could cope with my father's toxic friendship. But when he decided to maintain a relationship with Harold, the man who hurt me, my life began to fall apart. Trying to set boundaries and protect my family, I faced deep conflicts, not only with Harold, but also with my own father and husband. How can I establish a relationship and find inner peace before everything finally falls apart? Many years ago, through mutual friends, my father met Harold, and they became friends. When I met him, I was 18, and I was in college. We have never had a close relationship. However, he always considered himself a friend of the family and treated me extremely deferently and condescendingly. Every time I saw him, I tried to convince myself that everything was not so bad, but not a minute passed when he proved me wrong. Harold violated my boundaries, said something like, "You're not 19, you're still a child," when I talked to other people. And at every opportunity, he showed his condescending attitude to my education or hobbies. He always noticed that it annoyed me and playfully asked if I hate him. I always answered no, but I did it only for my father's sake. The last straw was the day when Harold interrupted the barbecue to say, "I like you very much, although you are also an impolite beast." I was 20 years old. I was silent all day, working on the article during the barbecue, but patiently and politely answered when I was addressed. And even if it wasn't like that, I knew he had no right to talk to me like that. After that, I tried to avoid any events he attended. Yesterday, my father's girlfriend had a birthday party. They threw a small party in his apartment. I came there with my fiancé and our 6-month-old son. Harold was also there. I haven't seen him for a few months, but he still talked to me like a stupid child. It doesn't matter that I'm engaged. I'm a mother and I'm 26 years old. I spent the whole party ignoring his useful advice that I'm too young to get married or be a mother. It helped that most of the other guests seemed to disagree with him. My baby slept almost all afternoon. There is a cradle in my old room. He woke up hungry, and I went to breastfeed him and left the party for a while. I came back to jokes and comments from Harold that I'm experiencing difficulties since I have to rock my son for so long. Then he interrupted the conversation I had with another friend of my father to ask me questions about almost all the educational process. By the way, he doesn't even have custody of his own daughter, and make a few more comments about my age. When he asked if I was thinking of giving the child up for adoption, I decided that I couldn't stand it anymore. After picking up my son, I told my fiancé that we were leaving. We said goodbye to everyone except Harold. When we reached the door, Harold came up to ask why we were leaving. I tried to come up with an excuse, but he kept persuading us to stay. After a small altercation, he jokingly asked if I hated him. And this time I answered, "Yes, I hate it. Can we go?" He didn't say anything, and we left. On the way home, my fiancé said he was proud of me. This morning my father called and said the opposite. We quarreled a little, but in the end we decided to leave this topic. I'm sure it's not over yet, but if everything goes on like this, it's not because of me. I'm not really proud of this episode of my life, and some part of it regrets me, but I'm done with it. Red, Jesus Christ is a superstar. How many comments? I will answer some basic questions. I don't think Harold is in love with me. Harold didn't tell me to give up my son. He asked if I thought about it when I got pregnant. It was still a terrible question, especially since it interrupted the conversation I had with another person, a pregnant friend of my father's girlfriend, who was asking about my own pregnancy and childbirth. I don't like to make an elephant head of a fly if it's not necessary. If I'm uncomfortable, I leave. If I don't like someone, I avoid them. So there is usually less stress. The quarrel between me and my father ended when I told him about the comment about the adoption. I don't think he understands that this is not the only reason for my departure, but it was definitely the straw that broke the camel's back. I really don't need my father to stop being friends with Harold. He is an adult, able to make his own shitty decisions. I never told my father that I hate Harold because I never thought I should like him. He's my father's friend, not mine. And I distanced myself from Harold since I was 20 years old. That is, we practically did not see him for the last 6 years. My fiancé was at the other end of the room and didn't hear Harold's comments. I brought him up to speed when we got into the car. He is 100% on my side. Update. Hi, guys. I wasn't going to write an update, but I got some free time, and I decided to keep you up to date. I'll start with the fact that I want to answer the very frequent assumption that Harold has feelings for me. I really don't think so. His comments were always annoying, condescending, and derogatory, but not sexual in any way. But I will say that your comments scared me to death. And the fact that the general opinion was to fuck Harold is strangely pleasing. I also want to add that, although I regret my words a little, I never doubted that I did the right thing. I think my regret was mainly caused by the fact that 8 years of peacekeeping are over. It took some time for the relief to come. To tell the truth, I wanted to do it from the moment of the incident at the barbecue, when I switched from I don't like this guy to I can't stand him. My father called Harold the day after I wrote the previous post. When I asked him about the comment on adoption, he tried to explain it by the fact that he was sincerely concerned that I became a mother so early, and that he did not think that I knew what I was doing. He apologized to my father. I didn't buy it. The next day, my father told me about the call. He said that I should forgive Harold for what, in his opinion, was a sincere misunderstanding. He also said that I should also apologize because I reacted too sharply, telling Harold that I hated him for such a minor reason. Many of Harold's past statements were made in the presence of my father. Often it happened in the middle of a conversation with other people, so he was too distracted to fix them. Most often he just didn't notice them. My father doesn't pay attention to the fact that he doesn't care and doesn't get angry, and most likely will forget about it until he gets angry at something else. He's like a goldfish with a methamphetamine head. We also have different understandings of the offensive, so he will never think that this is a big problem. I told my father that I didn't exaggerate when I said that I hate Harold, and that the remark about adoption was not the only reason. I listed most of the derogatory appeals and comments that I could remember, including those that were at the party. He didn't remember any of them. I made it clear that I hated Harold for many years before the party and that I had nothing to apologize for. Then I said that I would no longer come to any event where Harold would be invited. My father doesn't have to stop being friends with him or even stop inviting him to all kinds of events, but he can't expect me to come to any more. I'll ask him in advance and, if he lies, I'll leave. My father called me dramatic, but I said that I have been avoiding Harold for 6 years, and no one even noticed it, so it's not a problem. After the barbecue incident, I saw him only a few times, and only twice longer than a few minutes at lunch last week and at another party when I was pregnant. Obviously, it didn't ruin my father's life. I don't have to love his friends as much as he loves mine. We had a little bit, but he agreed to my conditions. Yesterday, we talked about something else, and he mentioned that Harold was upset. I ignored it. I'm not going to break off contacts with my father. Yes, I understand perfectly well that he is an asshole, and over the past few years I have been very close to breaking off relations with him, but in the end I decided that it would not fix anything. Maintaining a relationship with him has become much easier since I moved because we only see each other a couple of times a month. He's upset that I rarely call or write, but he doesn't complain about it anymore. I don't see the point of continuing a relationship with a person who no longer has a say in the way I live. I'd rather just take note of what my father did wrong when I was growing up, and I'll raise my child differently. However, he has been walking on thin ice, and for a long time. He is not allowed to sit with my child, mainly because I do not believe that he will be able to spend more than an hour alone with him and not fall asleep on the couch. I began to insist that he start undergoing therapy during pregnancy, and in June he finally started. Since then, his behavior next to me and my younger sister, who still lives between our long-divorced parents, has improved significantly. And I made it clear to him that he would not be allowed to visit my son if he stopped attending sessions. This is the first time in my life when my father improved his behavior. It's hard to hope, but I'm trying. And if I ever stop communicating with my father, it's not because of the fucking Harold. That's all. In general, I'm glad that I don't have to deceive anyone anymore. My relationship with my father is unstable, but I won't get hung up on it. My priorities are my son, my fiancé, and my job, and this will not change in the near future. And to those who mentioned Jesus Christ Superstar and Blue Gister called in my last post, did anyone tell you that you are damn cool today? Because that's how it is. Hi, guys. I can't believe it's been more than a year since I last wrote about it. I was planning to write an update some time ago. For the last few months, I have been immersed in raising a baby, a wedding hooray, and work like crazy, and reviewed Supernatural. Needless to say, I was very busy. Harold's open avoidance gave good results. My father respects my boundaries. Whenever he invites my husband and me for lunch or dinner, I ask who else will be there. If Harold comes, he tells me about it. So far, he hasn't lied and usually doesn't insist when I say I won't come. Since my last message, I've seen Harold only once, at my father's birthday a few months ago. Yes, I knew he would be there. Father promised to tell him not to talk to me. In addition, there will be children of my father's friends, most of whom I nursed. I haven't seen them for a long time, and I love them more than I hate Harold. As a result, I spent most of the party with my son and children. Harold didn't talk to me at all, so I think my father was true to his word. My husband and I noticed him looking at us a couple of times, but I decided not to pay attention to it. Once I caught my husband looking back, and the walking marshmallow I married really looked threatening. I love this man. Do you know who talked to me? Harold's girlfriend. Yes, now he has a girlfriend. She talked to me twice. First, she came up to go over my son, and then made a remark that he needed a haircut, ha ha ha. I already hate you. Later, she came up to me and said, "You're shy, aren't you?" I said no. She laughed and said yes, "You're shy." She said all this in a voice that could speak to a 6-year-old child. I managed to keep my face calm. Otherwise, I would have told her that I was not shy, but just decided to spend the whole party with the children because they were a better company than she and her annoying boyfriend. So yes, judging by both situations with her, Harold's girlfriend is unbearable. In other words, they are perfect for each other. I have nothing else to add. My father broke up with the woman he dated last year. A fucking long story. TC has a separate post about it, and I will definitely translate it right after this story. PP, and he got a new girlfriend. She's not annoying and not a psychopath, and actually I really like her. They won't last even a year. By the way, my relationship with my father is still not perfect, but it has improved. He began to apologize to me much more often. I don't know if it's therapy or the fact that motherhood apparently made me a bear, but I accept it. And I have to give credit. He is a very good grandfather. I'm also glad that my father respects my border with Harold. I really don't want this person to be in my life. To be honest, I'm quite satisfied now. My little boy is thriving. Part of me misses his childhood very much, but every day I am more and more proud of him. Meeting my child was fantastic. When I look back on the time that has passed since my last conversation with Harold, it seems to me that the world around me has changed. My new self has become more confident in its borders, but this renewal did not happen without painful conflicts and tensions. After I openly told Harold that I hate him, the feeling of relief was short-lived. Despite my fiance's support, I realized that this was just the beginning. My father persistently continued to be friends with him, and I could not get rid of the feeling that now every meeting with them is a new test of patience and my strength. I tried not to give in to provocations when I encountered them. However, every time I was next to Harold at family celebrations, I felt in danger, as if someone was polluting my little world. Every time after the parties, when I returned home, I felt the compression between me and my father getting stronger. We couldn't talk about Harold without escalating the conflict. My father didn't understand why I didn't want to communicate with a friend who had been a part of his life for so long. He's just joking, he told me when I tried to explain how his comments hurt me. And for me, it wasn't just a joke. I have long defined my boundaries and thought I was waiting for respect for them, a father who raised me from a different point of view. Therefore, I controlled each meeting with my father, asking in advance who else would be present. When Harold was printed on the guest list, I reported that I would not come. It was important to leave the choice behind tact was more important than all demonstrations of loving relationships. Soon my inner worries began to affect other relationships, especially with my husband. He often wondered if I was too immersed in the topics related to Harold and invited us to go to his parents for the weekend to take a break from this atmosphere. Why should we run? I objected, feeling anger rising in me. This is my family, and I'm not going to avoid them and this freak. These arguments eventually led us to emotional exhaustion. We needed openness, and I realized that I suffered the most because of the lack of trust, which was based on the habit of avoiding difficult conversations. One evening we discussed the problem with a cool head and came to the conclusion our courage required more efforts to eliminate misunderstanding and not disconnect from reality. I began to share with him my fears and experiences that Harold evoked, and he, for his part, supported and gave advice on how we can act in such situations. By the time I decided to meet my father again, I had hope. My idea was to try to talk to him for the first time about my childhood memories and how I perceived discussions about Harold. It was connected not only with this particular person, but also with how they influenced my idea of myself and what respect is. My father showed more understanding when I focused on my feelings, not on accusations about Harold. At this stage, I gradually realized that maybe it was also more difficult for him than I thought. I need you to know, when you invite him, it's perceived as ignoring my feelings. I clearly expressed my thought, also realizing that these words can affect him more deeply. With the help of therapy, which my dad and I started talking about earlier, his perception of our family began to change. With each new conversation, he more often tried to understand where my emotions come from, rather than to defend his friend. Unexpectedly for myself, I once faced the need to explain the situation with Harold to my child and teach him how to cut off toxic connections from an early age. Having convinced myself, I realized how important it is to choose my own path based on respect. Over time, his relationship with Harold began to change his status. After I once mentioned to him about my feelings for him, he tried to establish contact. But I didn't care. I stopped needing his approval, stopping at the achievements of personal life and the joys of motherhood. Now, looking back, I see how much I've been through. I did not lose my individuality, and I felt a greater rise when I was able to truly accept my feelings and become more open to dialogue with loved ones. Finally, there was a balance between self-respect and others. Harold continues to stay in the backyard of our lives. We cross paths from time to time, but his game ended when I came to the fore. I accept that this relationship does not have to be close and that I have the right to a world free from negative influences. By this point, I began to understand myself better and determine priorities. The main ones were my son, my husband, and free time, which I was finally able to share with people who care about me. Now I believe that every new day is a chance to build different, healthier relationships.